Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review of the latest episode of South Park Basic Cable. And this was an enjoyable episode. I didn't laugh out loud on really that much going on, but I thought it was still pretty entertaining and liked that it still kind of kept the focus mainly to a kid in the school, Scott Malkinson, and kind of his own kind of storyline, while also bringing in the kind of B storyline of his father, who works for the cable company, and dealing with the whole streaming thing, and it actually kind of working out pretty well into a nice coherent story. So we start off the episode and we see the Scott Malkinson show is the thing, and I kind of like that it was a James Bond kind of opening and dealing with his diabetes and everything. I was like, okay, that was pretty interesting. Let's kind of see how this goes. And we see him getting ready for the day, checking his blood sugar and everything, kind of psyching himself up to say, we don't know why he's saying that he loves his dad, but it's like, okay, what's kind of going on here? Gets down to breakfast, says he loves his dad, and tries to get him to get Disney Plus streaming, and he's like, no, cable's sufficient, and especially since he works for the cable company, he's like, screw that noise. This, of course, has him angry, and he checks his blood sugar and has to take some insulin again. So he goes to school dealing with everything, and they get introduced to a new student, Sophie, who's moved from Arizona, and she likes The Mandalorian, and she's got diabetes. And at this point, it's pretty much Scott checking out, pretty much completely in love. And it's interesting because we see the other boys kind of gravitate towards her for like different reasons, because he's in love with her because she's got diabetes. Like, oh, we can connect on that. And that actually isn't that bad of a scenario, because usually at some point it's like, oh, we've got this thing in common, that's going to be great, and he kind of just blows it out of proportion, as any kid would do. And he's pretty much, we hear some other information about her, and she's even got like a pony and shit. She's from Arizona and all this. Like, okay, you kind of want to hone in on the other stuff before going into the love montage in your head. But they're at lunch, and Scott's like, all right, she's going to be my girlfriend, don't mess up this opportunity for me. And of course, Jimmy likes her because she likes the Mandalorian and everything, and Scott's pretty much telling them all to back off, and Cartman goes into his default mode of pretty much making fun of him for his diabetes. And I like the joke because it's like the basic bare bones. They just make fun of him, like his voice, and for him having diabetes, and that's it. It's kind of that basic level kind of kid stuff that they'll make fun of other kids for. That becomes important later on, because he's like, oh, okay. We see these other kids pretty much trying to get into her good graces, and Scott pretty much is like, hey, I gotta hand it to him, even though he's more of a background character, and we get some development for him. I wish there's a little bit more, but we see him have kind of his Butters moment where he is like, fuck y'all, I'm doing this, and is pretty much setting off the thing of, y'all back the fuck off, man. Especially with like all the other kids and shit. I'm like, good on you for standing up for yourself, man. But he gets in, they get into conversation and everything, and she wants to watch The Mandalorian at his house. It's like, holy shit, alright, cool. While this is going on, Scott's dad has finally got a call, and he's got to go to Butters' parents' house because their cable box is acting funny. And I like this because, granted, even though they don't do much with the premise, they just go with like, okay, cable company people, they give that window, and he goes and does all of this stupid shit, and then shows up 15 minutes late. Like, he goes to McDonald's, gets a burger, eats, does all this other kind of stuff, and then shows up 15 minutes late, and there's like, and they're like, well, maybe we should switch to streaming and everything. Oh, why would you do that and everything? It's like, well, yeah, Hollywood might be making niche things for people to watch. And I really like how they're going through, and it's like, okay, cable's doing all this kind of stuff, and then it's like, yeah, streaming, you can kind of watch whatever you want. And he laments people not bonding over the same TV shows, but it's like, well, you've seen that people are bonding over the Mandalorian and all that. You see all these people gathering at houses to watch and stream it on the internet. And I kind of liked seeing them kind of delve into the streaming stuff that way, because then he pretty much gets into his head that he wants to mess up the internet because the cable companies control that as well, because it's kind of funny. They would be shifting more from like cable service things to doing internet service things as time would progress, because it's the same companies doing the same shit. Eventually, they'll turn the streaming shit into cable. We're just not at that point yet. So he's like, alright, I'm gonna fuck with the internet so that way nobody can stream and all that shit. And he gets his people together. They do their whole window thing. He's trying to do this, and they're all fucking around doing their own shit, just showing how crazy and inefficient these kind of things can be. And they finally get to a point where they are able to mess with the cables and all that. Scott has this like candles and flowers and shit and all this stuff, and he has her come over and they're about to watch it. We see, of course, just the obligatory Baby Yoda there with his little soup cup, and then of course that's when the internet goes out and they keep walking around trying to find other places to stream. They go to Jimmy's first, and of course Jimmy and the rest of them are trying to ingratiate themselves. Cartman, of course, is trying to do this stuff as well, because Scott was able to use his insulin to get access to a Disney Plus streaming account, because his father wouldn't allow him to, and he even made fun of him the same way the kids did when he had asked him to. So he took the insulin, took it to the, of course, streaming dudes, like, oh, you want the good shit, and he gave him some insulin. And the thing is, I understand that this was supposed to be kind of like a drug deal. Now, granted, I actually put that there would have been more emphasis on having insulin as a drug deal kind of thing, because like, oh yeah, people were really fucking need that to live. And seeing him kind of like injected, I'm like, what would happen to somebody if they didn't have diabetes and they injected that? That could do some shit. Okay, but he got the streaming account, and of course bringing us back to the point of they got there and they were trying to watch their stuff, and it got switched over to PC Babies. And I love the meta commentary of like, nobody likes PC Babies. And seeing the rest of the kind of strange titles that were put on, like One for the Ladies, the Blacks and the Whites, and all that stuff. And it was funny. They made fun of like Canada Plus, which would just have Terrence and Phillip and the Queefing Sisters. And it's like, that's the only shows they've got. I love that burn on certain streaming services that don't have jack shit. It's like, yeah, that's all you got. And why? And Cartman putting the moves on the new girl was kind of funny, because Scott, when he was going for information on the Disney Plus streaming account, Cartman told him that like relationships were diabetes times 10, and that when you want to kill yourself in 2 years, go for it. And him just kind of flipping around and being like, yeah, I'll do my own thing. That's just the typical kind of Cartman thing. So they decide to go to Token's house and try and go and see if he's got it. And they just kind of keep dashing around. And we see that they come at Sophie's house with the mom, and the internet's out everywhere. But of course, the cable guys keep getting all the calls for everything. Now, granted, when they're at Sophie's house, Scott's pretty much gone balls busting crazy because everybody's putting the moves on her, and he eats pretty much this blueberry pie that's in the kitchen, and then comes out being like, fuck off all you people, with like the insulin needles kind of Wolverine style. I didn't know if he was gonna go like Hulk out diabetes form, kind of like from the video game, the Fractured Butthole. And she was like, I'm not your girlfriend. I mean, I just moved here. Let me unpack my shit, okay? And of course, this like is like, yeah, but we have diabetes. It's like, yeah, but I'm more than my diabetes. And then of course, Scott is really downtrodden and leaves and everything, and his blood sugar is low. But she pops up and hits him a candy bar and says, you know what? You're not the weirdest and grossest. He's like, that's the nicest thing anybody ever said to me. As he eats his candy bar and everything. He's like, I didn't mind the Scott Malkinson show, and having them have kind of an interesting little... They're not, of course, going out yet, but I kind of like that we have a setup of an intriguing kind of friendship at least starting. We'll have to see if any of that continues or whatnot, but I'm like, oh, okay. And then, of course, we end the episode with a nice little stinger of the Scott Malkinson show's streaming rights are to be sold, and that you can call this phone number and talk to Trey, and we see that the cable people are like, oh, god damn it, as they're walking off the screen. So, this was an enjoyable kind of episode. I didn't laugh out loud at all of the jokes, but I was entertained throughout the entirety of the episode, and the story structure was pretty nice and coherent, in that no one story was fighting over another to achieve dominance, and I kind of like that we explored Scott Malkinson, because I've always kind of liked his character in the background of mainly the video games that I've seen him a lot in, and seeing kind of what they would do with him when they put him up front. So hopefully they kind of explore his character a little bit more going forward. So those are my opinions on the episode. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.